Yeah, good morning all. Today we will discuss about the three important copy options parameters we have a copy into command, right? In copy into command we have a multiple parameters. Today we will discuss three important parameters. Okay, one parameter is going to be a on error. On error is going to be a one parameter. Then we will discuss validation mode. Then we have a two other parameters like force. What do you mean by force? And we have another parameter purge. Okay, we will discuss all these four parameters today. These are the four important parameters which you need to understand in a copy into command. Okay, now let's start with the on error. Okay, here we have here we are going to copy the data from the files, right? From the in stages we have a different files. From the files we are going loading data into a Snowflake tables. Okay, now we need to say to Snowflake, what if any error is present in any particular file, what Snowflake need to do if it encounters any error. We have a five different options to tackle with this. Okay, we can say to Snowflake, on error, if you notice any error in the file, just continue the data, continue loading the data and skip the, if you notice any error, skip that record and continue and load the remaining records which you don't notice any errors. Okay, this is one of the option. Then you can say skip the file, simply you don't load the file which contains any error. Okay, or skip file only if it contains more number of, I mean to say, if it contains number of errors equal to, let us in, I am consider n here as 3. Skip file if it has a more number of errors greater than or equal to, if it has a more than 3 errors or equal to 3 errors, then simply skip that file. Instead, else load the file with the number of records present in that file. Another option is skip file with a particular percentage. If I'm going to give it as a 10%, if the records in this particular file exceeds more than certain percentage, then skip that file, else remaining load the remaining records without any errors. We have another option, just abort statement. Just if you notice any error in any of the file, if you have a 5 files, if you notice error in the fifth file and remaining 4 files don't have any error, simply abort the statements and don't load any data in a table. We will see all these for different values for on error parameter practically. Okay, so I have an on error, just I'm creating the db. Okay, now I'm creating the schema, csv file format, creating the table. In this table, let us see the number of records present in this particular table. If you can see, I have 0 records in this particular table. Now I'm going to load this file, data load testing with errors. I will show you this file. Before that, yeah, I'm just listing the files. These are all the files present. These are all the files present in my user stage. With these all files, today we are going to work. So what I'm trying to do is, here I have a file name with data load testing with error. Okay. Okay. This is the file that I'm trying to load. If you see here on the row 11 and row 12, I have a error records. Okay. These two are the error records. Actually, this is the number. Data type must be a number. Instead of data type number, I have a string. Okay. Now I am trying to load this data into a Snowflake table. I am saying to copy into statement. If you notice any error, just continue the data loading. Okay, just I'm executing the copy into command. If you notice here, row slated is 58 and we have errors in 2. These are the two records that I have errors, and these two records haven't loaded into a Snowflake. Okay, now let me verify the count. The count must be 58 records. 58. So the two records which have an error haven't loaded into Snowflake. Okay, this is one option. due to Snowflake. If you notice any error, just continue the data loading, but don't load any records with the errors. Okay, next we have another option. I'm truncating the table. So if you now it must have a 0 records. Okay, now we are going to deal with a skip file. So I have two files here where one file contains the error and another file contains this file data load testing2.csv.conzip file. This file doesn't contain any errors. Now let's see how it's going to tackle in this scenario. Here I have the option on error skip file. Skip file indicates that if you notice any single error in any of the file, then don't load that file and move on to the next file. Okay, now let me try to load this data. If you can see here, data load this file contains error. Okay, data load testing underscore one with errors. These are the two errors that I have shown earlier, right? So what is the status it's showing is load failed. Why? Because we are using the option on error skip file. We are saying to Snowflake that if you notice any of the error in the file, just simply skip the file and don't try to load that particular file data into Snowflake. So what Snowflake had done, while after we execute the copy into command, Snowflake considered that see had Snowflake considered that on error we are saying that skip file. So if it notice any of the error in the particular file, then simply it will skip the file. It won't load any of the data. So it has a 60 rows and rows related was 0. Why? Because we are saying to Snowflake on error just simply skip the file. Whereas in the another file data load testing 2, this file doesn't contain any of the errors. So it contains the 60 records. All the 60 records got loaded into Snowflake. Now let us verify the count of the tables. Count of the records present in the table. If you see, these are the 60 records that are present in the table. Okay. This is what we are going to tackle when R error is equal to skip file. Okay, let me truncate this table. It must contain the 0 records after truncating the table. Okay. Now in the third scenario, we are asking Snowflake to skip file when it contains the number of errors is going to be if it has a number, if any particular file contains equal to or greater than 3, then don't load any kind of data. If the errors is less than 3, then load the data. If it is greater than or equal to 3, just simply skip the file. Okay, I have a 3 files. Now I'm trying to load the data into Snowflake from 3 files. This file contains errors in 2 records. This file doesn't contain any error. This file contains 4 errors. Okay, let us see how Snowflake handles this scenario. So here our criteria is on error. We are asking to skip the Snowflakes to skip the file only if the number of records in a particular file is greater than or equal to 3. Okay. In this first file, data load testing underscore one with errors, I have two errors. Okay. If you can see here, error limit was 3. If it notice error limit which is greater than or equal to 3, then it will does not load the any kind of data. In the scenario data load testing 2, in this particular file we don't have any errors, so it had loaded the 60 records. In the second file, the file with the name data load testing 1 with errors, it has two errors and the limit is 3 errors, so it had loaded the 58 records. In the third file we have a 4 errors and the limit was 3, so it has skipped the file. Okay, this is what the if you can now the count must be 118 because 60 rows loaded from this file and 58 records from this file. Now let us verify the count. It have a 188 records. Okay, so this is one of the another option for on error when you are going to give the skip file. Now let us truncate this table. Now there is another option, skip file 10 per, I'm going to give skip file. We are going to indicate the percentage. If the, let us consider the rows, when it exceeds the percentage of errors in the particular file, if it has 100 errors, if it has 100 number of records in a particular file, and if it exceeds or greater than or equal to, if the records, error records are greater than or equal to 10%, then it will skip the file, or else it won't skip the file. Okay, here I'm considering four different files. Okay, one file, we have only two, we have every file contains the 60 records, and this particular file contains two error records. This does not contain any error records. This contain four error records, which is less than 10%, and this file contains seven, close to seven error records, which is greater than 10% of the data present in the particular file. Okay, let us see which files it will skip. If you notice here, this is the file without any errors. So it got loaded successfully. It loaded successfully. Okay. This is the file with four errors. Okay. Earlier it has the, we have given the skip file equal to skip file underscore 3. In this case, this file had skipped. Whereas we are giving the skip file underscore 10%. In this scenario, it had loaded partially. Why? Because it is 4 is going to be less than 10% of the errors in the, when compared to the total number of records present in the file. Okay, so it got loaded partially. The errors was 4, so it got loaded out of 60 records. It has a 4 errors. So 56 rows had loaded successfully. And the final scenario, which is we have the errors, 7 errors, which is greater than, out of 60, 6 is the 10%. So we have a 7 errors. So it is greater than 6%. So greater than 10%. So the file haven't loaded into our snowflake table. Okay, this is, if you see the count now, it must be equal to 60 plus 58 plus 56. It is 174. Okay, this is how the snowflake, these are the five different, we have another option which is known as a abort statement. Let us truncate the table and let us validate the count. Now it must be, after truncating, must be 0. Now we have an on error abort statement. So abort statement says that if you notice any single error in any of the file, just simply don't load any kind of data into snowflake table. Let us execute this copy statement. If you notice here, it has directly, it has shown the error. So it is saying that if you want to load, try to load the data, if you notice any error, just use the another load options like continue, on error, continue, or skip file. Okay, now let us validate the count. It is 0. Why? Because on error we are setting the option on error abort statement. So if you note, if it notices any single error also, it will just, it will entirely abort the entire statement and will not, it will not load any single record also. These are the five different values for the skip file options. Okay, any doubts here? This actually, this is going to be definitely for, I mean to say, for Snow Pro certification exam, definitely there will be one question on this. What is the value? What, how the behavior will be when when you are going to use a different option? Hope everyone had understood. Any doubts here on error options? We have a five different options. Continue. Just it will continue the loading data and by ignoring the error records. Whereas the skip file, if it notice any error in a file, just it will simply skip the file and load all the other files which doesn't contain any errors. Skip file underscore number of errors. Here we are going to define if the number of errors is greater than or equal to particular errors that we specify. If it snowflake notices that, it will skip file, else it will load the records which does not contain any errors. Here we are specifying in terms of percentage. Abort statement simply abort the entire execution and it will not load any kind of data. Okay, hope everyone is able to understand this on error parameter and the five different options that we have: continue, skip file underscore n, skip file percentage, and the abort statement. Any doubts?
Like after getting errors, like how can we find that this is the error? Like
Yeah.
so many, like so many files is there, right?
Yes,
In
yes,
which
yes.
file we have a like error in this, and then how we can
Okay.
overcome that?
Yeah. Then the debugging option. Yeah. Let me come to that. If you know, just I'm executing this. Drunk. It will show first line error. It will, if you can, if you show here, it will show you the line number. Where is the error had? Where is the error is present? It will show you the line number error 11. Okay. This is the error that it is showing up. Okay. So this is one way that we are going to validate the errors. There is another way. Before loading, before executing the copy into command, we can validate the data present in the stage, and we can notice, we can resolve what, we can identify what are the number of errors present in the particular file. To do that, we are going to use another parameter known as a validation mode. Okay, this will, for your question, we are going to discuss about the validation mode. Validation mode, using the validation mode, we are going to validate the data, and we have the, in validation mode, we have a three different types of values. You can give return rows, return number rows, return errors, return all errors. Before executing the copy into command, what we usually do is we will execute the validation mode. We will validate any whether the any errors are present in the particular file, and we will try to rectify the errors, and we will try to load it again. Okay. Now, oh, before continuing the validation mode, hope everyone understood this on error, right? Yeah. I will explain you how we are going to how we are going to identify the errors and rectify the errors using the validation mode. Yeah. Before jumping on to that, hope everyone understood what do you mean by skip file, continue, and abort statement. Okay. Yeah. Now
Like
let,
at a time we can write the statements, right?
no. Usually validation mode and copy mode cannot go hand in hand. First we will validate the we will validate the we will validate the records. Once the validation is done, then we will execute the copy into command. We can give the validation. Usually validation mode is done earlier before executing the copy into command. Okay.
Like before only we need to, first of all we need to validate first, right?
Yeah,
Then
we need to
only.
validate whether any number of present in this. Well, if you provide the validation mode as return errors, and if you execute the cop on error continue, it doesn't give. I mean to say, it doesn't go hand in hand. First, we will validation mode is used to identify the errors present in the files. Okay, what are the different types of errors present in the files, and we will rectify the errors, and then we will try to load the data. Okay,
Okay, then we don't want to use this commands, right?
which commands?
Like continue,
Continuously. Yeah, on error.
continuous.
Yeah, okay. What happens is if you are executing the use if you are using the snow pipe, right? Then we will place the on error equal to continue. Once the on error equal to continue, it will snowflake. We are using the snow pipe, right? It's a automatic loading. Once the file is placed in the snow pipe, I mean to say in the external stage, and we are using the snow pipe, then automatically the data get ingested into table. Then in future, if you want to debug the in future if you want to debug the particular file which contains the error, then we can use the validation mode. Return errors, what is the error present in that particular file. So in terms of debugging the errors present in the files, then we will use the validation mode to identify the errors which are present, and then we will rectify the errors present in that particular file. We'll try to load the data. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. So we have the let us see that one. Yeah, let me create this now. I've created one table, just verifying the counts. So what I am trying to do is, so we have a three parameters. We will, while validating the data, validation mode, we have a one parameter named as the validation mode. Okay, why this parameter is used? It means in order to verify the errors present, in order to verify and validate the data present in any file. And if you notice any error, then we can rectify it manually. Okay, then we can load it again. So we have a three different types of values that we can pass to this parameter. One is a return number of return number of rows, return errors, return R errors. There is a difference between these three values. Let us see how it will behave when we provide these three different values. In the first scenario, I'm taking the validation mode as return 5 rows. So what return 5 rows says is, you can give any number here. I have given it here as a 5. Return 5 rows, what it does is, so Snowflake look into this particular file. It will pick the first file, and it will look into the file, and it will try to validate the first 5 number of rows. Okay, if it sees any error, then automatically the error which it noticed in the first 5 rows, it will give us back. Okay, if it does not notice any errors in the first 5 records, then it will move on validating to the next consecutive rows, and whenever it notices first error, then it will throw us the first error it notices. Okay, so let us execute this. Here in this particular file, I have the error in the 11th record, but here I am giving the option to validate 5 rows. Okay, let me execute this. So what, though we are asking to return 5 rows, validate and return 5 rows, validate the entire file, validate the file and return 5 rows. Here we are saying to the Snowflake. So Snowflake, what it does is, it will try to validate all the entire file, and it will try to, whenever it notice any first error, then it will return the error. Okay, let us, so to understand this, let me execute these files, which one file does not contain error, one file does not contain any error, and another file contains, one second, let me execute the file that does not contain any error, so that it will be easy for you to understand. So if you see here, this particular file don't have any errors. So what I am trying to ask to Snowflake is, validate the file, validate this file and return 5 rows. It validates the entire file, and it will return the first 5 rows if it does not contain any errors present in the particular file. Whereas if it contains, though here we are specifying the return 5 rows, means here Snowflake try to validate entire file, and if it does not contain any error, then it will return the 5 rows. So while validating our file, if it notice any error, then it will throw us the first file that it sees. Okay, let me execute this. Here you have received the, so the error is present in the 11th row, on the character 1 on the 10th row. Okay, line 11, as we are skipping the header, it is row 10. Okay, so it will return the first error that it identifies. In case of validation mode, when you present the return 5 rows or return 10 rows, this is how return 5 rows or return 10 rows works. So simply Snowflake picks a file, and it will try to validate the entire file. If it does not notice any error, then it will return the errors that we specified here. Okay, in order to view the data for the user. Okay, if it notice any error, then it will show up the push up the first error it identified. Okay, this is how return 5 rows works. Okay, let me execute the return errors. So here I have a two files, where we have a one particular file with 4 errors, another file it have a 2 errors in a different records. Okay, so return errors will return all errors in a very easy format. Let me execute this. If it notice here, you have a file return You have the file. Let me see. Error underscore row underscore 11 search Egypt. We have the this particular file has a two errors on the 11 on the row 11 and 12. These are the two errors, row 11 and 12. It's shown up. Again, in a different file, it has errors on the 15, 16, 17, 18, 15. Let me open that file. Data with four errors. So return all errors or return errors. What it does, it had identified the A, B, C, D as a four records. But if you notice here again, the 15th record got shown up in a two times. Why? Because in this particular row we have a in this particular row we have it contains the two errors. One is in the column serial number and this column ABCD. It contains the two errors here. So 15th record has repeated twice. Return errors return errors, it displays all the errors. If you notice here, this is how we are going to debug. These are the particular line number where we have the error. Okay, in terms of if you notice continuously ETL is sending, I mean to say ETL is they are performing the, if you have noticed same error is reoccurring and reappearing again and again, we will update the ETL team. This is the error that we are going to get on a continuous basis where it contains the, where we are getting the string data instead of numeric data. So they will try to modify the data and push the data into our internal stage or external stage. Okay, this is how we are going to verify the number of, I mean to say the number of errors present in particular table. This is what the return errors returns all the errors present in the files. Whereas the return five number of rows or return three number of return underscore n underscore rows, it will validate the file and it will return the only first error. Return errors, whereas return errors, it will show all the errors which are present in the files. Okay. But validation mode does not load any kind of data into Snowflake. Let's execute this. It has a zero records. Okay, now we have another option which is known as a, if you see here, let us try to load data. Now we have the error in this particular file and we are trying to load this into Snowflake. Okay, so we have the 58 records loaded into Snowflake and the two records which contain the errors haven't loaded into Snowflake. Okay, now so if you see here, now I am using the return errors with the particular file that was already loaded into Snowflake on the using the condition on error. Okay. Now let us try to execute this validation mode. If you notice, it haven't considered return errors. Return when you give the validation mode equal to return errors, it does not consider the file which already loaded into Snowflake. Here on error equal to continue, we have mentioned the on error equal to continue, we have loaded this particular file. So when the file got loaded into Snowflake, this file it will not be considered. So it had, as this file haven't loaded into Snowflake yet, so return errors had considered only this particular file which was not loaded into Snowflake. So if you want to consider even this file also which already loaded into Snowflake and want to see the errors present in this particular files also, then we need to move into another, we need to pass on another particular value which is known as a return all errors. Okay, if we use this value validation mode equal to return all errors, then it will validate the even this file which are already loaded into Snowflake. Okay, let me execute this. So return errors haven't considered row underscore 11 particular file. If we execute the return all errors, so it had, even though this particular file got loaded using the on error equal to continue, validation mode equal to return all errors validated the particular file which got loaded as well, which got loaded using the copy into statement on error into continue. So using the snowpipe, if the data get loaded into Snowflake, we will use the validation mode equal to return all errors but the particular file which we need to validate. Okay, that is the difference between the, we have a three values that we can pass to the validation mode. Return number rows, return errors, return all errors. Return number rows, if it does not contain, if the particular file does not contain any errors, just it will validate and it will return the number of rows that is specified. If it notice any error, it will show up only one error at a particular time. Okay, return number rows. Whereas the return errors will show all the errors present in all the files, but it will not consider previously, it will not consider a previously previously copied files. Okay, return all errors will consider previously copied files also. Okay, hope hope everyone is able to trying hope everyone is able to get the difference between the return errors and return all errors. Okay, return number of rows, simply remember that it will display only one error at a time, whereas the return errors will display us all the errors, but it will not consider the previously loaded files. Okay, whereas return all errors will consider the files even though it got loaded. Okay, any doubts? If someone is able to not understand what is the difference between the return errors, return all errors, and
Like written error, like only present, which is a present file, in that file only, in whatever the errors are there, that will return, right?
yeah, not only in that let us here if you say
Like you
return,
told that in
yeah,
previously.
yeah, previous, if you can see here, so return errors, I'm using the, I'm using the two files, right? Okay, let me truncate the table and explain you again. One second. So here I am using the file with the error. Okay, this is the file which contains errors. Okay, just I'm on error continue, just I'm uploading, just I'm loading the data in this file. So this file, we have processed this file error, we have processed this file error underscore row underscore 11. This particular file we have processed. Okay, so the data got loaded into Snowflake. 58 records got loaded into Snowflake out of 60 records. Okay, now if I try to using the value validation mode, for the validation mode return errors, if I try to validate this particular file, okay, as the file got already processed and data got loaded, it will not, Snowflake will not validate the processed files when you use the option return errors. So just I'm executing this. So Snowflake had ignored this particular file which already processed and loaded into Snowflake. Even it contains the errors, Snowflake does not consider it. So Snowflake had validated only this file which contains the errors. So okay, if you want to consider even this particular file for the validation, then we need to use the option return underscore all errors. Okay, if you use this particular option return underscore all errors, even the file got loaded while on error equal to continue and processed the data load, then if you are going to use the option return underscore all errors, then it will contain this particular file as well. If you see here, error underscore row underscore line, this file got considered and it is displaying the errors present in the particular file. Okay, that is the difference. Row underscore return underscore errors, if the file is processed, return underscore errors will not consider for the validation. If you want to consider the file that got processed already, then we need to use the option return underscore all underscore errors. Okay, hope you are able to understand
Yeah,
the,
yeah, I got
okay, fine, thank you.
this.
Still any doubts? Yeah. These are the two, I mean, so actually these are the four parameters which everyone need to understand. Okay, hope everyone is able to understand the on error and validation mode. Validation mode is used to validate the errors present in our files, and we'll try to identify the errors and rectify it and we'll load the data. Whereas we are on error, we are saying to Snowflake, if you notice any kind of error, what action need to be taken. Okay, then we have another two options which is known as a in copy, purge and force. Okay, there is a requirement in certain cases. Okay, it could be like once the data is present in the internal stage and get loaded into Snowflake, after loading the data into Snowflake table, you you directly delete. Purge is nothing but a permanent delete of data in a particular stage. Okay, it could be user stage, table stage, or an external stage. Once the data got loaded into, once the data get loaded into table, you delete the file which we have considered for the data load. Okay, let me show you. So just I'm so these are all the files that are present in our user stage. So for testing purge, we are considering this file testing purge.csv.conjure. This file I am considering to validate purge equal to 3, purge equal to true. So if I execute the copy command, we have two options. We can use the purge equal to either true or false. We can pass either true two values. If you don't pass any value, then default it's going to be a purge equal to false. If you are not going to include this parameter in a copy statement, default it will consider the purge equal to false, and it will not take any action for the file that was present in our stages. Okay, in a different scenario, if you are going to use the purge equal to true, purge equal to true means once the data get loaded into once the data get loaded into SF table, you purge the file present in stage. So it means that whatever the file that you are considering for the data load into Snowflake, once the data get loaded into Snowflake, after completing the data load, you purge the file, you permanently delete the file present in the stage. Okay, so let us execute that. So we have one table, first table, we have the zero record. So I am using the copy statement. This is the copy statement. I am using the file testing purge.csv. So I'm using this file, and here mentioning as a purge equal to true. This means that once the data get loaded from this file testing purge.csv, from this file, once the data get loaded into table, then we must not see when we list the files present in the stage, then we must not see the file testing underscore purge.csv in the list of files that are present in our stage environment. Okay, now let us copy the data. Let us load the data from the file. So as it does not have any errors, it got loaded. Let us see the count. We have the 60 records. Okay, now let us list the files present in the stage. If you can see here on the top, we are able to see testing underscore purge.csv before purge equal to true. Before the data load, this particular file is present. Now in our stage environment, this particular file testing underscore purge.csv is not present. So when we are going to in the copy statement, when we include purge equal to true, automatically the file which we have loaded into Snowflake will be removed from our stage environment. From our stage, it could be user stage, table stage, or external stage. When we have the scenario purge equal to true. Okay. Hope everyone is able to understand what I mean by a purge. Any doubts regarding the purge? It's very simple. When purge equal to true, once the data get loaded into table, the file which we have utilized to load the data into table, that file will be deleted from the stage. Okay.
Like we need to write mandatory. Is it mandatory to delete the table after executing this one,
No, no, no.
or
Usually,
if
yeah.
we can?
Usually we don't do. Usually we will we will mention purge equal to false. No, we require that. We require the data, whatever the files. Just in case if it is required, there are certain requirements in a certain scenarios. They don't want to store their data in the external environment in external stages. So only in that particular scenario they are using the purge equal to true based on the project requirement. Usually for the non-sensitive projects, we will maintain the data in the external stage also. Only for the security purpose, if you don't want to, clients who don't want to store their data in a multiple places, they will ask to delete the data once the data are loaded into Snowflake tables. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. This is what the purge equal to true. Okay. Let us truncate the table. So we have another option. We have another option known as a force. So what force means, one sir? Once the data, if you try to process, let us consider two files with the same name. Even the, let us consider one particular file was processed and loaded into Snowflake. Okay. Then if you want to, if you try to load the same file again, Snowflake will not accept the file. Even the under, if you don't change the file name, even if the underlying data changes also, Snowflake will not process the same file again. We have seen this, we have seen that while using the internal stage, while discussing about the internal and external stages. Okay. Suppose there is a requirement that you want to process the same file again, then we will use the force parameter and we'll set the true. Okay. Now let us validate that. Verifying without, see, this is the file that I am trying to load. Okay, let me execute this copy command. For the, when you what happens when you, when we don't use the force command, when you use the force equal to true. Okay, so this data got loaded. This particular file, verifying without force. Here we don't have a force equal to true. If I try to reload the re-execute this copy statement again, and we try to, we want to load this particular file again, we want to process this particular file again, means, see, without using the force, if I try to re-execute it again, it says that load skipped. Why? Because the error was file was loaded before. As the file was loaded earlier, Snowflake cannot process the same file. Snowflake cannot process the same file again if the force equal to false. Okay, so you can validate. If you select the count equal to, you have the 60 records. So if I execute the same command again, if we try to process the same file again, it, the data haven't got loaded. Still the data remains the same, and we contain only the 60 records. Okay. No, there would be scenario. Let us consider there might be a scenario that we are using the single file name, and we are every time it is going to same duplicate. There is a requirement that you want to reload the same file again and again multiple times. Then we need to use the force equal to true. If you set the force equal to true, then you can process the same file again and again multiple number of times. Okay. Now let us truncate this table. So here we are using the copy force equal to true, and we are trying to load the same. We are trying to load the file verifying force. 60 rows got loaded. So here force equal to true. Let us see the count. Here the 60 number of records. Now I want to process the same file again. If the, again as force equal to true, we are able to process the same file again, and if you see the count will be 120. Okay. So when you set the force equal to true, then we are able to process the same file again and again. Okay. This is the difference between the purge and force. Whereas the force give an opportunity to load the same file again multiple number of times, and purge will give us the opportunity to delete the file once the data got loaded into Snowflake. Okay. Hope everyone is able to understand these four particular parameters: on error, validation mode, force, and purge. Any doubts regarding these four parameters? These are the, usually these are the four important parameters in the copy into command. Rest self-explanatory and no need. It doesn't have any more importance. Okay. These are the four important parameters. If you under an interview, any interview, in the copy command, more than these four parameters, we don't go beyond this. Okay. Any doubts so far here? Okay. If there is no doubt, we have, then we will move on to the topics that we need to understand. So Yes, someone is speaking.
Mohan, one small doubt.
Yes, please.
For example,
Uh-huh.
in previous table we have loaded, right?
Yes.
For example, if any data updated in that previous table, so if I use the same syntax like command like force equal to true, so can we able to store the same data, or instead of loading again I wanted 60 rows into that table,
So you want to load only, I mean,
the updated data?
you are asking that only updated data need to be loaded into Snowflake instead of the, let us consider that in a particular scenario, you have 60 rows. So
Yes, yes,
you have 60 rows, these got loaded. Okay. So
yes.
what you are trying to say is, you are, instead of 60, along these 60 rows, you have added a new row as a 61 and 62. Okay. You want to load
Yes,
only
yes,
61 and 62.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Instead of 60 rows, you want to load only 61 and 62, right? So
Yes, yes.
there is a two ways that we can achieve this. Okay. One is actually we can truncate the table. We can truncate table and load the new file. So when you truncate
Mm-hmm.
the table, all the 60 records which are present in the Snowflake will be removed. So whatever the data that is present in the new file that you got, you can process the 61 and 62. All these records will be loaded. There is another way. Instead of truncate, let us consider you have around you have around 6 crores of records in the Snowflake table, and you
Mm-hmm.
have added these two particular rows. Okay. 61, and in this
Mm-hmm.
particular scenario it's not feasible to drop entire these 6 crores data and load this entire table into a Snowflake. Instead of that, we have the command known as a merge. Okay. Merge is a command
Mm-hmm.
using the CDC. You have the concept known as a CDC, change data capture.
Okay.
Change data capture. So what, using the merge command, how the it is able to, it is intelligent enough to identify what are the changes happened or occurred in the source table. Using this source table, once the data get loaded into the, so it's like processing from the stage to source table. It's like processing from the stage tables to destination tables. Using the change data capture, what are the records that got identified, what are the, it is going to identify what are the changes that had happened. If there is any new inserts, it will insert the data. If you are updating the existing records, okay, let us consider already the data which is present in the table. If you got update any particular column, then it will update only that particular field. Okay. If you delete any particular row, it will delete entire row. We are using this concept using the change data captures. With the change data captures we can perform this. Okay. Ideally both cases will be present in the real time. We are going to truncate few tables and load entirely new. There are few scenarios where we are performing the change data captures. Okay. We have multiple scenarios, depends upon the requirements. Okay. This is how
Okay.
we deal. Yeah. So if
Okay.
that is done, yeah, thank you. If that is done, if you're able to understand these four parameters, then we need to understand. So we have discussed now, till now we have discussed until the data loading, how we can, there are multiple ways using the data loads using the Snowpipe and in the different stages. One thing pending was someone asked using the how to load using the Azure. We will discuss in the later section how we can work with the Azure. One guy asked, right? So we are as of now we are discussing only with the structured data. We are not moving into the semi-structured. Once you are able to understand the structure, we will move on to the, in the later section at the end we will discuss entirely using the semi-structured data, how we'll work with the semi-structured data. Okay. So temporarily we will discuss later how we'll work with the Azure. And then if you have understood these four parameters, this is what all the discussions upon the data loading. Now our topics for the next discussions will be like time travel, fail safe. We need to understand these four concepts. This was related to tomorrow we will start with the micro partition. What do you mean by micro partition? Once the data get loaded into Snowflake, data internally in the Snowflake will be stored in a micro partition. What are the advantages of micro partition? How we are going to, what is the advantage that it provide by storing the data into micro partitions? Whether it is automatic or static. Usually in other traditional databases it is the static we perform, whereas in Snowflake it is automatic. How the data is going to store in a micro partitions, we will understand what do you mean by a columnar format. Okay. What advantage it is going to give by using the columnar format. Okay. Then tomorrow we'll discuss about the time travel. fail-safe. Data encryption and replications, these both are the admin, Snowflake admin topics, but on a high level, we will touch what do you mean by data encryption, how the data is encrypted at the during the processing at the particular when it is at a particular stage environment, how the encryption works. Okay, we need to understand from the developer point of view. We need to understand time travel, fail-safe cloning, and the what do you mean by a zero copy cloning. Now the concept like zero copy cloning. Okay, these are the five. We'll try to complete these five topics tomorrow. Okay, as we are getting delayed day by day, we'll try to complete. We'll try to focus on micro partitions, how the data is going to reside in micro partitions. What do you mean by micro partition? What is the feasibility that Snowflake provides by using the micro partitions? Before that, there's few people who are not aware of metadata. We'll understand what do you mean by metadata as well. Just for the sake of understanding, we may not be aware, we may not know what do you mean by metadata. We'll try to understand what do you mean by metadata, what do you mean by micro partition, how metadata for the each micro partition is stored, what do you mean by columnar format, time travel, failsafe, and zero copy cloning. Tomorrow we will cover all these six topics. Okay, hope everyone understood today these four parameters. You can practice those four parameters, and if you have any doubts you can raise tomorrow. Okay, I have uploaded all the topics that we have discussed so far.
Like chat, like last